Namaste. Greetings and welcome to Living Holistically. Living Holistically is about 6 or 7 years old. And originally, we were so happy to begin a series of ateliers, which is a community-based workshop that would share the information that's so essential to the growth and development of family life, relationships, education, primarily because the whole education piece of indigenous people of North America, and specifically in Richmond, to have a school that would be able to express the history, the culture, the thoughts of a developing community coming out of an apartheid system or slave system. And literacy is one of those subjects that is very, very important, not just for the indigenous people of North America. The mother language, the language of this planet, the language of the universe and its inhabitants is the primary focus of living holistically. We're concerned about an education that reflects the diversity of the definition of what an indigenous person is. And an indigenous person has its source on this planet. Without passports and IDs and other requirements required by governmental agencies. And so, if you're indigenous to this planet, that means that you are a citizen and you have a divine right to be here. Meaning that the Auto-Chichens, who are the first people that landed or left a footprint on this earth. Some say that this place originated in the Kilimanjaro area of the Mountain of the Moon, where the oldest indigenous family first developed its roots. But specifically, there are several sites where the indigenous original people of this planet has its origin. We know that telling the story to children about where did they come from, how did we get here, what are we doing here, and where are we going is very important. That's a very important question. When you have a society that's the writers of history that delete and leave out the story of the indigenous people, then you find that the educational process is inadequate. So living holistically was an offshot of what home education looks like, and originally the design for being homeschooled by the mother who is the first teacher and the first psychologist and the first nurse, the first guide of the infant, for her to be well-rounded and well-informed and well educated from her own historical perspective, not from the perspective of people who have conquered or are still exploiting that people. So it's very, very important that the language that's spoken at home reflects the original language of those people. If the language has been substituted by the language of the occupiers or the disruptors of your personal, tribal, and ancestral languages, then we must put those languages back into the family, into the household. In lieu of that, living holistically began with those issues of establishing the tie between mother and child, child and children, meaning male and female both, so that they would not be damaged by anxiety separation, by being separated from the parents at too earlier in the stage of development, and then put in the hands of state agencies or agencies that deal with public education. And we understand that there's a lot of catching up to do. In the meantime, today we're going to talk about living holistically and how do we get that holistic language reintegrated back into the family life that would exhibit and have all the support systems that it needs to elevate the consciousness of not just the parents, but also the consciousness of the children, so that they will be nurtured and cared for, and they would be familiar with the language of acceptance, of praise, of adoration, of improvement, of high motivation. Children need to hear beautiful things. They need positive feedback. And so that's why we are looking at neurolinguistics as a tool to help to improve the quality of language that's used at home, and then you practice on yourself, then you share it with your family, then you're able to express yourself in a more positive way. So chaos comes from confusion, a confused state of mind. And we know that the mind is a tool, is a precision instrument, and when used properly, then we will be able to manifest the very things that we like by implementing the original word or the creative word of God. To increase your vibratory expression so that the molecules, the atoms, the molecules get excited and they create vortexes of energy that turns on and stimulates the mind and create a peaceful and happy atmosphere. So today we have Dr. Jimmie Pratt.
Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Who is a master at this art and science called Neurolinguistics. So can you tell us a little bit about how you discovered, like Christopher Columbus, how did Christopher Columbus discover America? I want to know, how did Jimmie Pratt discover neurolinguistics?
Well, it goes back quite a few years back. I was working as a salesperson for a large corporation. I'll give you the name, Circuit City. And I was watching TV one night, which I very rarely do, but I was just happened to be watching TV. And this program came on about this book. So I ordered the book. And I read it, some of it, not all of it, just enough of it to get me to where I wanted to go. And I used this technique in some of my everyday thinking, my way of thinking in my job, at my job. And everything began to shine just a little bit better than it was before. I began to understand things that I was already doing that I didn't know about. I wasn't conscious of it. And the first year, my sales went up 30%.
Is that right?
Yes.
So is it body language?
It's body language. Linguistics is body language. The neuro is your brain power, dealing with your brain, your mind. Mm-hmm. So you use your mind and your body. And and I use neurolinguistic to for my cells. When I would ask a question, I knew exactly what the answer was going to be. I went into a cell or whatever question I was going to ask, knowing what the answer was going to be before I even received the answer.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that the oldest language on this planet is body language.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Posture has a lot to do with how you feel about yourself. Isn't that right?
That's right.
All right. So if someone had poor posture, then what would you suggest them to do?
Straighten up. Well, you know, if I ask a question and their body language tells a lot about them. Mm-hmm. They could be sick. Mm-hmm. They could be sad. Mm-hmm. If they have poor body posture. Mm-hmm. Some could be wrong. I mean, not necessarily physically, but mentally.
Oh, really?
And a few words, the right words, could change his whole day.
It's called
neurolinguistics.
Neurolinguistics or redirecting.
Yeah, you redirect his thought process.
Yes. Who's the conductor? Who's the conductor?
I am.
I am the conductor.
Mm-hmm.
So a conductor is something that, in the world of electricity, you are the conductor of energy. Isn't that right?
That's right.
All right. So the oldest language is the language of the body.
Right.
And so can you read people based on body language?
Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. It's like a dance, and sometimes you have to take your time and let that person lead for a while, just so you get a clear understanding, so you don't get false readings.
Okay.
So if I ask you a question and I don't get the answer that I want, mm-hmm. then I'll kind of sit back a while. Mm-hmm. And just see where you are, and then I will let you lead a while, and then I start using body language.
Your body language.
My body language, and I would mirror image that individual. Mm-hmm. And eventually I will see just to check and see where we were. I would start leading and see if he would follow me before I closed the sale if I was selling something, or just to see if that person was comfortable with me.
All right. What about setting the model? The model, when you model a positive body posture,
Right.
does the person that you're talking to, do they modify their body posture by
Yes.
what you're modeling?
Right. Pretty much. That's what you're trying. That's what you want to accomplish. This way, you know that the person is with you, that we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm. So, is it a mirror image modeling, or is it sideways, or is it direct? How do you model how do you know how to model yourself?
Well, I mean, it just depends on where the conversation is going. I might stand in a certain position. Mm-hmm. I might have one hand in my pocket. Mm-hmm. And see if he put his hands in his pocket or their pocket. Or I might cross my arms like this right here. Mm-hmm. Or do this. Mm-hmm. Or if they're leading, I might do something similar to what they're doing. If they're like this, I might do this. Mm-hmm. Because if they know what I'm doing, then it won't work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, so we learned something new today, that in a parental-child relationship,
Right.
you can improve the communication
With the child.
with the child through better body language, through a non-threatening body language.
Right. Not only that, you can use tone. I mean, you know, it's the way you, let's say if I ask someone to, excuse me, would you please sit down? And then I go back and say, okay, sit down. See, it's a different tone. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we do that without thinking when we're talking to our children. They're human beings too, and they have feelings. And we have to respect their feelings in order for them to respect us. So we ask them in a way that is non-threatening.
Gently.
Gently, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we just talk, you know, through talking to your child. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to scream at them.
Oh, you don't?
No. Like I was watching a show the other night, and the lady had a strap and she was beating her child. And I really didn't appreciate it, but you know, it wasn't my child, but then, you know, what could I have done in order to keep that from happening? The child needed help and also the mother. They both needed help at that point. It'd gone too far.
All right. So we're looking at new models of parental authority and communicating with the child and develop a relationship that's friendly, and so it won't escalate to the point of physical abuse.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, when a child is, you have to start when a child is small. You can't try to, I have a teenage grandson right now. I can't try to start raising him at this point. The relationship with him and me started when he was a baby. Mm-hmm. So he respects me. I respect him too, as a grandson. Mm-hmm. But when I ask him to do things, it's not like I'm demanding that, hey, you got to do this. He does it because I have been good to him, and I do things for him, and I do things with him, and we do things, you know, together as a team. And so it's, you know, we have a good relationship. Mm-hmm. I have a good relationship with my son and my granddaughter. We have the same relationship. It's a different relationship, but it's a good, loving, family-type relationship.
So tone has a lot to do with getting the cooperation from another person that you're seeking.
Tone is very, very important, yes.
Okay.
You don't have to scream and yell to get things done or
Right.
accomplished.
Right, with a gentle tone.
Right.
I think that would that improve the quality of relationships between husband and wife?
Yes, it would.
Because then it's not that you want to control a person, but you would want to be aware of how you're presenting yourself. Just being aware of your tone.
Right.
Right.
You don't have to scream and yell. The wife could have had a bad day. She come in, she had a bad day. She might need a little time to herself. And so you have to know how to approach her. And if you've been married for some time, you can see her face and you can realize that body language means hands off, and that's exactly what it means. So so you should know when to approach a person, especially one that you know and that you've been around for a long time.
What about eye contact?
Eye contact is important. If I ask you a question, I won't say nothing until you answer it.
Well, if I ask a question, I would want face to face.
Right.
Right?
And that's important when you're talking to an individual. You're talking to your child, you're talking to your wife, you're talking to your associates. You want them to know that they're important, that you are listening, you hear exactly what they're saying.
Did you read that book on 1 Minute Manager?
It's been so long ago.
They say it really
But I
doesn't
did.
take long. It really doesn't take long to develop rapport,
Right.
right?
It doesn't.
It takes about 60 seconds to let a person know that you care and that you're listening,
Right.
right? That you can stop whatever you're doing for 60 seconds.
That's not very long, is it?
But it is a long time if you have, if you are a A-type behavior person
Right.
and you want to get things done, you don't want to pay too much attention to someone who is having an emotional crisis. They could be just having, not such a good day.
Right.
And a person who's having a great day may not realize that 60 seconds can make a difference in that person's feelings
Yes.
and attitude.
Some people can walk into a room and the whole room just light up. And everybody just kind of, the energy in the room, everything just changes. And you feel it when they walk in the room. And then some people can walk in and just takes the
Energy down.
right down, and then you have to kind of try to build it back up, and it takes a while sometimes to build it up, build that energy back up. But I've noticed, that in about a month ago when I walked in to visit a friend of mine who was in the hospital, and he looked at me and he just instantly, his eyes lit up. He was so happy to see me and I had just saw him like a couple weeks prior to that. And I could see the energy that I gave him that he drew from me directly to him. And it made him feel good.
And it made him aware that before you came,
Right.
the energy was probably very low.
It was very low.
But when someone comes in with a happier energy, or a happier state,
Right.
or a balanced state, right?
That's right.
Then you can feel that energy. And so your coworkers can feel the energy when you bring that to work. And that makes a big difference,
It makes
too.
a huge difference. And a smile goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
You walk in a room, you got the biggest smile. Whoever got the biggest smile.
Well, I'll tell you, that a lot of things happen on the job
Right.
recently, where people are bullied or disrespected
Right.
or harassed.
Yes.
They're put down or ridiculed. This goes on in a household. There are some children that are appreciated and praised and encouraged. And even in the same household, there are children who are ridiculed in the same household. They are admonished, they are embarrassed,
Right.
right? They're accused of doing things. So right in the same household. And then this microcosmic piece that happens in the household is taken, these patterns are taken out into society and the workplace,
And I agree with that.
Right. Those kind of things, just 60 seconds of eye contact, right?
Right. And a smile.
And a smile. And
a hug. If it's your child, you need to hug your child. Let them know how you feel.
Or a non-threatening posture.
Right.
Right? And this non-threatening posture means that we're connecting.
Right.
We're developing communication between each other. Now, if I turn slightly away from you, what is that body language telling you?
Well, it's telling me that you're done talking, that you're ready to move on to another conversation, that my conversation is no longer
the focal point.
Yeah, the focal point, that you see something else in the room that you want to move to, and that's fine. Because sometimes you can start a conversation with a person, and it may not be the conversation that you want to hear, but then at least you acknowledge that person. You walked up, you smile, and it only takes 60 seconds of your time
Right.
to a person to say, hello, how you doing? It's been a long time. I haven't seen you in a while. You look good. And that one thing, words, you look good. That word right there could be all that you needed to hear. And you thank you, and have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Then you move on to the next, if you're working in the room.
Now, you used to live in Hawaii,
Yes,
isn't that right?
I was there for 3 years.
Do you have the aloha spirit?
Yes, I do. I was talking to a friend of mine. He just got back from Hawaii, and we talked about we had a few words that that they say when they mention Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He knew the words, and I knew them too, and so we kind of cited that toward each other. But after talking to this young man for a while, found out that he and myself was there at the same time. Never met.
Is that right?
We never met.
Is that right? So there are people, that you share a common history with,
Right.
right? But they don't come into your field of awareness until later on.
So later on in life.
But from all the statistics, they say that Hawaii has the healthiest people in the United States.
Oh, I haven't read
They
that,
have
but I know that
happiest attitude.
they are happy people. They're very happy people. When I was there, I had friends that would come, because I didn't have a car, especially when I first got there. They would come pick me up, and I would spend the weekend with them. And they was Hawaiians and Samoans, and they would sit outside every weekend. We would play the ukulele, sing songs, and they would cook out, and they had this beer called Primo. I wasn't a beer drinker, but that's what they was drinking. I remember the beer. And that was some of the best times in my life.
Just people just sharing
Stories and singing songs. And doing the family things, because there's the husband, the wife, and the children. And see, that's what God intended for it to be. a happy family, the mother, the father, the son, and the daughter. And of course, God is...
See, these good habits, these healthy habits
Right.
are a spill over into the community. Beyond your household, they spill over into the workplace.
Right.
They spill over into the village, the town, the city, the state, and have a positive impact
Right.
on society. When we see things happen in the society, if we look at it analytically, some of those things take place in the household, like the injustices that go on in certain geographical areas where indigenous people own the land that they lived on, the
Right.
ancestral land. They've been there for millions of years, and then somebody else come and tell you got to go on down the street.
Yep. They move in and
Where?
they tell you a few stories about, this land is no good, but this here is better for you. And somehow or another, they get you to believe that. And they end up taking all the minerals and all the rights to the lands for little or nothing.
But, it doesn't build humanity, and it doesn't build trust.
Right.
Some of the things are just cast aside, saying that it comes along with the territory. But it's an unnatural state. It causes a lot of grief
Right.
for people, a lot of anxiety. So when there have been breaches in the word, or breaches in the contract, breaches in the agreement,
Right.
that is a disconnect, isn't it?
It is.
It's a disconnect.
Well, see, let's go back to the land deal. A lot of people didn't understand how to read and write back then, so they didn't know what the contract said. All I had to do was put my mark.
Usually it was an X.
An X, which was my mark, and I didn't understand what you was talking about because we don't speak the same language. We're not from the same country. This is my country right here. You from somewhere else. And I put my mark on it. Of course, I just signed away 100 acres of land.
Because you didn't read the fine print, and because you don't speak that language.
I don't speak the language, and all you have to say, well, you put your mark here, so that means you gave it to me.
Oh, do you remember that man named John, who was a Buffalo soldier? He was one of the original Buffalo soldiers, and he was in
World War II.
Was it World War II or World War I?
World War II. He was in World War II.
Oh, John. What was that story?
Well, John was, I think he got detached from his unit. Him and a couple other individuals, and or a few others. And so they was tired, and they was beaten, they was hungry, and they was thirsty, and they was walking up this road, and then here comes a lot of Germans coming down the road. And so they was like, oh man, I guess we just turn ourselves in. But when the Germans got there, the German was tired, and they was beaten, they was hungry, and so they turned themselves in. So they captured the Germans.
Oh, is that right?
The Germans actually gave themselves in, so turned themselves in.
What was that other story about the man who got his name stolen?
Oh. Well, there was a big fight one day, and two soldiers was fighting, and back then, it goes back to, we was talking about the land deal. These two soldiers was fighting, and the sergeant stopped them and got in between them and wanted to know why they was fighting. He said, well, he signed my name on that piece of paper. And he said, what you mean he signed your name on that piece of paper? He cannot sign your signature on anything. He said, yes, he did. He looked at it, and what he had was an X. And back then, a lot of people put X's on there because they didn't know. And so he accused this guy of stealing his signature, which was the same as his. And talking about the X's, I know a lot of people back when I was smaller that used an X for their sickness. That was their mark. And their mark was what they used to sign their paycheck with. They signed their paycheck. Everything they did, they put their mark on it. And that was their mark. And they said, well, that's my mark right there. And they would put that on there. And I do human services sometimes now, and some of the individuals do the same thing. They can't sign their signature, so they will put their mark on it. So you can imagine what they're going through.
Yeah, some
they don't
people.
understand.
Thank you for sharing that, because we really want to talk about literacy and what you can do to eliminate inadequacies when it comes to language. All right? Because we talked about the physical part of neurolinguistics. We talked about connecting with the person, right?
Right.
We talked about eye contact.
That's important.
We talked about tone.
Right.
Tone is very important.
Yes, it is.
You know.
Let's see, you mentioned earlier about words. All we have is our words. Tone is important, but our words is very important. Because what we say is everything that we ever said is floating around somewhere out there.
Seeds of reality.
The seeds of reality. At some point, they will manifest itself, right? So if you say good things about someone, it's going to come back at you the same way.
And it's going to regenerate and reboot and restore your energy.
You're right.
Because when you use a negative description about someone,
it will come back at you.
It will come back to you
in a negative way.
In a negative way. And in fact, that had something to do with that MBA owner.
Yeah, she didn't know he was being recorded. And and it backfired on it.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Well, you know, even on a spiritual level, things like that backfire on you because you didn't use the language of the higher self.
Right.
And there are people who use adjectives like black, right?
Right.
Like Negro, which is a color.
Yeah.
It's a Negro.
So describing a person.
It's a Spanish word for black.
Right.
Right? It's not a person.
No.
It's an adjective. And so, an African is...
Well, you would think he was from Africa, but
that's not necessarily
right.
so. It's just these are adjectives. We sometimes condemn people to a lower status by the way the language that we use, and to demean that person. That person might be the most valuable person in your life, right?
That's right.
Who supports you, who respects you, who honors you, and then you disrespect them.
Right.
It's just like some children who disrespect their parents, and some parents have 2 jobs in order to keep all the bills paid and make sure that the children are safe, and the children are disrespectful.
I agree.
Disrespect starts, it's very, very simple when it starts. All right? God put absolute pure love in a child's heart.
Yes, he did.
Right? And after a time, you know, something happens to the child. And the mother calls the child, and the child says, I'm going to talk under my voice. I do not want to do that for her.
Well, come and get this child. If you're the grandfather or the grandmother, come and get him. Can you keep him for the summer, or they got to a point that they kind of fed up. But at some point, the child have lost respect, or they have lost respect for the child. So the connection is not quite the same as it was when they was a little bit, not the pretty little baby anymore. They got a personality now. They can talk and they can think for themselves.
Responsibility.
And so we have to kind of keep up with them in a sense. Everything started out one way, but ends up a different way. Now, my grandmother raised me, so I always respected her. I never said one word to her that was out the way. Not one word.
Did you ever think something?
I mean, if she asked me to do something, I'd be like,
it just,
I did it yesterday, but I wouldn't stand there and say it. It would be under, my voice. I wouldn't say it out loud.
It's something about what you say under your voice. You can meet someone, a coworker,
right,
a husband, or relative, and you see them when they call on the phone, and then you say, "Oh, it's them again." That's how it starts.
Yeah, and sometimes they can sense. They can sense that. And they'll leave it alone. And sometimes it's best left alone because it might just be just for that moment. And I always did what my grandmother wanted me to do. Not one time did I have a crossword with her or tell her that I would never do anything or I would not do something for her.
I think it's because of her body language, her tone.
She had a dog would switch in the corner. No, she never.
A dog would switch. I don't know about that. My grandmother used willow.
Okay.
And so those kind of things, well, you knew then there would be repercussions for certain behavior.
Yes.
There are repercussions for behavior for adults.
Right.
So the repercussions come from not using the proper language in dealing with soul, spirit, mind, and body. If your language does not match your goal.
Right.
Right? If your language doesn't match your goal or goals, then you have to bring them into alignment with your goals.
That's where you can accomplish what you're
right. There are
trying to
people
get done.
who could benefit from neurolinguistics because they smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, they could.
Right.
If you want to quit smoking or lose weight.
And so what are they telling themselves if they're smoking? What's the difference between someone who is smoking and not wanting to smoke as opposed to a person that's smoking and wants to stop smoking?
Well, one that's smoking and want to stop smoking, and one that's smoking and don't want to quit smoking. Well, you have to weigh your options there.
It's the language. This is the thing. It's the language of someone who loves smoking.
Right. And want someone that wants to quit.
And someone who knows in the back, deep down in their psyche, they need to stop. Right? What's the difference in the language that they're telling themselves, this self-talk that you're telling yourself? What are you saying?
Well, if you get out your own way, you can quit.
That if you get out of your own way, and I want to translate that a little bit. When you say, it's great to be a non-smoker, can you say that and mean it?
Yes, you can.
Or, smoking is not going to hurt me. I can smoke for a couple of more years.
Well, that person's going to continue to smoke. He's going to continue to smoke for 2 more years. You try to put an end date, narrow it down, narrow the field for him.
So, but suppose you really need help. What do you do?
Well, you have to call that person in for
a consultation.
Right, a consultation. It's going to take more than one if you don't not serious about quitting, but he has to at some point decide that, his health or their health is failing.
Okay, so, I'd like to ask you about anger issues. What's the language of someone who's very volatile and high-strung and has a chip on their shoulder all the time? What does that language look like?
Well, it looks like a madman. I mean, the body language tells everything. And it tells a lot about a person, the body language does.
All right, and their verbal language as
Verbal
well.
language too, yeah.
Because of the tone that they're using. And so would you suggest that people need help for that?
Yes.
Right.
And it goes back to the way they was raised. Nobody ever told them they loved them. It's something simple as that. Say, okay, I love you. I just want to, be your friend. And they may not have a friend. They might need a friend. Or they've been abandoned by someone. They don't have anybody that they can count on.
That is so true.
It could be a number of reasons, but you have to go below the surface to find out why this person is so angry.
Could neurolinguistics
Yes.
help that?
Yeah, it could help them. In a subtle way. You can't just go head on and try to you can't save the world, but you could.
You can help someone change their language.
Yes, you can.
If they could change their language, they can change their vocabulary, right?
Right.
And choose different words that have a different vibration. That leaves you in a happy, healthy state.
Well, you have to know when to say something and when to hold.
Oh, really? Timing.
Timing and everything when you're dealing with a person that way. You could say something, he'll look at you like it could scare you to death. You think something wrong with him, but that's his norm. But if you stick with it for a minute or two, then you really get to know that person.
What about people with depression?
Well, something happened in life that caused that.
Do you think neurolinguistics
Yes.
can help a person?
It could help a person that's depressed.
And sometimes people don't realize that they are, and their feelings have been hurt,
Yes.
right? So if their feelings have been hurt, then that affects, again, the body posture,
Right.
the tone of their voice. You know that something is wrong.
Well, you have, let's say if it's a child that was raised by someone other than his natural parents, and they're lost, and they're with another family, and they're not getting the same treatment, so jealousy. Grown up, and they grow up at some point, feeling that, they don't belong.
So these feelings really have a direct impact on productivity,
Right.
on your hygiene, on relationships.
Everything that you do in life,
Right.
yeah,
Based on,
the way you was raised.
really, those
Yes.
things stick with you that long?
They stick with you. If your parents fuss and argue with each other all the time, chances are you will argue with your wife and fuss and do the same thing.
But you can be proactive, in expressing yourself and setting some ground rules, for yourself. When you set ground rules for yourself, you're saying to yourself, I am a very likable person.
Right.
It starts with yourself. So your beautiful self.
I am beautiful, I am strong, I am healthy, I feel good, I look good, and you tell yourself those things when you get up in the morning, and at some point it'll sink in.
Because you planted seeds
You
in
planted
your
the
own.
seed. And seeds are words of reality.
So your seeds, you seed your own garden.
All right.
And when you seed your own garden, then every seed, which is a thought held in mind, reproduces after its own kind. I'll say it again. Every thought held in mind reproduces after its own kind. And so, what happens in a garden? You decide what seeds you would like to plant in your garden. And it would be tomatoes, potatoes, onions, mustard greens, collards, kale, Chinese cabbage. So all of those things are going to reproduce after its own kind. I'm saying neurolinguistics, using the words properly, you will find your way to a peaceful state and a more productive state of mind with no frustration. Right?
Well, that's right. You cannot plant a collard green seed and expect cabbage. It's not going to work.
Okay.
It's not going to work. So when you're talking about neurolinguistics and you're trying to, I guess, reprogram an individual that's been programmed all their life, they've been told that they was no good, that they will never amount to anything. You have to go back and you have to try to work with this person to get them back up to speed.
To plow up the old weeds.
The old weed, those collard greens, because you want cabbage. Yeah, get those weeds out your gardens.
So you have to weed your own garden.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely.
And you can weed your own garden by performing good deeds. There's an old saying somewhere in Yads in Isfahan, and it says, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, good life. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds, good life. And so, it's no mystery how people arrive at a beautiful life and a peaceful, calm state. Right?
That's right.
Because in order to accomplish anything, tell me about your Noah story.
Noah? Whoa, you don't want to hear that. You want to hear that for real? Well, Noah, the word Noah, to me it means calm.
It means calm?
It just means calm.
Oh my goodness, I never knew that.
You know, it rained for, 40 days and 40 nights, and he built an ark. And the word ark means protection.
Okay.
Protection, so, so Noah had to calm, and he was calm, and he gave protection.
Okay, so it wasn't a physical boat.
It wasn't a physical boat.
So the word Noah means calm.
Means calm.
A calm state of mind. And the word ark means something you take refuge in.
You take refuge in.
Right, with a calm mind. So many of us go through storms we have created. Some of those storms show up as rain, hail.
And we're getting plenty of that right now.
We are.
Yes.
And we have a direct impact on the environment. And so when we have these states of mind that are unstable, then the weather is affected too. And so tell me about this 40 days and 40 nights.
Well, in the Bible, Jesus fasted he fasted for 40 days. And okay, anything that starts with 4, something always happened. 40 or 400 or 4,000, every it has something to do with that 40. Something great's supposed to happen. I know the Messiah in the year 1917, this was 400 years after Martin Luther, but something great's supposed to happen. The Messiah is supposed to come. And a lot of people are waiting on the Messiah to get here. But the word Messiah means...
Where do you get all these definitions?
It's leadership.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's leadership, someone to come and to lead you to more like, and calm you and teach you the way God intended for you to be taught.
Okay.
Yeah, so we want to go back to man and woman, son and daughter, and of course God, and the Messiah, the second coming. Another Messiah, he's supposed to be here. He's supposed to have been here after any time after the year 1917. And a lot of people expect something huge, a big bang or something to happen in order for the Messiah to come. But see, the Messiah could be a woman. It could be a man. It could be a woman. It's not going to be the same person. It doesn't have to be the same person that it was before.
It's not going to be the person that's in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican.
No, it doesn't
He's
have to
not
be.
going to come off the wall.
No.
Okay. Well, Messiah means messenger.
Messenger, yes.
Somebody who is a teacher. Someone who will bring you out of your troubled waters into a better state.
A better place.
A better
state
place,
of mind.
You know. And I really appreciate you coming and sharing and talking about neurolinguistics, you know, because I think that it's a subject well deserving.
Well, I have enjoyed my day, and I thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And we at Living Holistically have an invested interest in the development of our state of mind. Heaven is a state of mind, and when you're using your mind properly, in a very peaceful way, it sends out waves of love and compassion for all of humanity. No one is left out because of something you like or dislike. It's very important to speak the language of love and compassion, understanding and wisdom, wisdom and love, the masculine and feminine energy of the universe. It's one word: love yourself, honor yourself, respect yourself, enjoy yourself, respect others, love yourself. And we'll be back next week with Living Holistically. Thank you. Namaste. I see God in you. Thank you.